welcome into the Purple Room podcast. I'm Patricia Caputo. He's David Bartholomew, and today we have a special guest in Preston Guy, who is the staff writer for TigerBait. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so happy. So let's get started talking a little bit about you, as we're both involved in student media here at LSU at the Manship School. You are a Manship alumni, so can you talk about that and your experience at LSU?
Well, going to LSU was a lifelong dream of mine. I actually got rejected to the school twice before I got here, so I had to work really hard to get into school. And I even had a lot of obstacles even to get into the Manship School with that GPA requirement. It was really tough. I don't know if it still is, but I had to get some things in line with my life. But it was awesome. They gave me all the tools I needed to be successful there, the help and the training to figure out what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do with my life. So I'm a proud Manship alum. I really am. Whatever I can do to help the school, I do. It's one of those things. They really prepared me. I wake up every morning excited to go to work, and that's an awesome thing to say that I don't think very many people get to say, and that's the kind of opportunity Manship gives you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your time when you were on campus, and I know you mentioned earlier that you were a student, you were a sports information director at SID as a student. Tell us how that was.
Oh, man, I was kind of on the fence about whether I wanted to do broadcast or writing at the time. And that opportunity opened up. It was a really cool opportunity to work with Michael Bonnet and do some PR writing for the school and help with media relations. I got to build a lot of relations with that opportunity. It was just a really fun, great internship overall. Really glad I got to do it. It gave me a good background to work with a lot of people. You can practice doing broadcasts, you can practice writing news stories, but it really is an opportunity to be hands-on working with the media, the BRZs of the world, the advocates of the world on the scene and from the press box every single week. Very thankful for that opportunity that I had while I was a student here at LSU.
Yeah.
Did you always know that you were going to play football? Or did you always know you wanted to do football? Did you play before?
Yeah, no, I played football for about 10 years. I wasn't great at it. I kind of knew that I enjoyed the sport more than I was good at it. I did play in a state championship, so there's that,
Okay.
I was an offensive lineman. We forged away for a 3,000-yard rusher.
Wow.
I believe he's third single-season all-time leading rusher to this day in Louisiana. So proud of that, but it was very obvious that I enjoyed the sport more than I was good at it. So, I really just wanted to go to school, learn how to write about it, learn how to talk about it, and try to see if I can make a career. One of the thoughts I had when I was a young kid is, if I'm going to be as obsessed as I am over this sport and the teams that I enjoy, I might as well find a way to make some money out of it. And that's exactly what I've done, and it's awesome. It's one of the reasons I tell you, I wake up excited to go to work.
Was there a certain player that encouraged you to play football and get into this business?
All right, yes.
Okay.
But it's probably not someone you would think of as a football player. His name was Glenn Big Baby Davis.
Okay.
Big Baby.
Big
Yeah.
Baby, that's right.
I know Big Baby.
Okay, Big Baby, he was a freak running back.
Yeah.
Man. Let me tell you, he played for U-High. Dude was a freak, and he actually showed up to my high school that I ended up going to and just ran up the score on them one day. His mom was my nanny growing up.
No way.
Yeah, Miss Toyna. Shout out Miss Toyna. Love her to death. I was a very young kid, and I had given up playing football and probably would have just gone a completely different direction. And I just talked to him about my issues, and he's like, look, man, you probably just don't like those coaches, not the sport itself. I think you really need to stick with it, find a new team, and keep on going. And 2 years later, sixth grade, got back into it, and I guess the rest is history.
I love that. And that kind of goes to show how that, invisible strength theory, that everything that we're doing in life brings us to where we are now. Kind of similar to what Tiger TV has done. We're live at Walk-On, something we could have never imagined, and that's just the opportunity. But I brought that question up because, David, you met one of your heroes who are the reason you play football today.
How did you know?
I looked at your Instagram, you said it, and if you look very closely, Why don't you? Tim
Shout out to Tim
Tebow.
It's a little sacrilegious, I think, here.
Tim Tebow said, "Go Gators" on an LSU helmet. Would
Which-
you have ever have imagined
By
that?
the way, even though that's my hero, I said we should have wiped it off
Yeah,
once he wrote that. You're not going to write "Go Gators" on an LSU helmet.
But do you feel like, in 20 years ago, do you think you could have told Tim Tebow, like, one day you're going to write "Go Gators" on an LSU helmet from
Hey.
student media?
When I was a little 12-year-old, 7th grader boy, when I read that Tim Tebow autobiography that made me want to go play football, I mean, I never thought I'd meet him, but I had chills reading that book, and I was always like, okay, I want to play like Tim Tebow. So he kind of did motivate me to play football. So it was really cool to see him today.
He was the reason my sister was a Jets fan for many years. My sister loved the Jets. She got a Tim Tebow jersey for that.
All 3 weeks he was a
Yeah,
Jet.
him and Mark Sanchez. Those were the two where she was like, I'm a Jets fan. So she still claims the Jets franchise as her favorite team. But let's continue to get into a little bit more about your journey as a journalist. And I know specifically we were both wondering about your quest to help Jayden Daniels win the Heisman Trophy.
All right, so there's some concepts in play here. There's
Okay.
a lot of people who followed up and thanked me for whatever and said, you're true LSU, whatever. You know, you got to separate these concepts when you're a journalist. You're not there to root for the team and cheer for them anymore. Once you leave this school, you have to be objective and fair about these things. So no, I wasn't lobbying for Jayden Daniels because I love LSU or wanted to help the team or be an extension of the PR arm. My days doing LSU PR were over. But the facts were overwhelming to me. And a lot of it was just responding to others who were making kind of egregious claims. And it's like, well, here's the deal. Here's my opinion. And here's why I have this opinion, and backed up with a long litany of facts. And I just continued doing it. And of course, in this day and age of social media, you get to have a little fun with some fan engagement. So there's a lot of cities out there that I'm unemployable in nowadays.
Oh.
Seattle, Washington,
gonna say.
never getting a job there. Eugene, Oregon, South Bend in Notre Dame. You know,
Yikes.
I guess that's part of the territory of cutting up a little bit, having
Yeah.
some fun with it. But that's cool about social media. Back in the day, doing journalism, you know, you wrote in a newspaper, you were on TV. You don't really get to have. You have to be kind of more clean and cut. Now you can do that kind of stuff, and I think people really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Some
because during that whole Heisman race, I feel like the hate on Jayden Daniels was so
Right,
disingenuous compared to the critiques on all of the other quarterbacks. Like, for them, all the other quarterbacks were leagues better than Jayden Daniels. And I was like, are we watching the same game? Are we watching what he's doing on LSU football game days? He was carrying the offense at times. His speed was unreal. His accuracy consistently got better throughout his time at LSU. Like freshman year, when people said he couldn't throw a ball, he came back I said freshman year, his first year at LSU. He came back that next year, and he showed everyone he was accurate and he was fast on his feet. What do you think?
I think the facts spoke for themselves, and one of the most interesting concepts about that time period was the people who thought that Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. should win the Heisman. They talked about how bad Jayden Daniels was, or how much he lost.
Yeah.
You know, the people who wanted Jayden Daniels to win, they talked about how good Jayden Daniels was, and
Yeah.
that always spoke volumes to me. Is that you have more substance behind what Jayden Daniels is doing. It wasn't a team award. It's an individual award.
Yep.
And to me, the facts were just overwhelming that he was the most outstanding player in college football. If you look at the statistics, he was leading the country in many passing statistics. There's a strong argument he was the best passer in the country. You add on that, he's a 1,300-yard rusher.
Yep.
I mean, he put the team on his back so many times. And I fear about what that team would have looked like a year ago with that Madhouse defense. Clearly, Jayden Daniels saved the day in a lot of ways, and of course, put the team in position to win 10 games, which is a big deal for a program that was having some instability before he got here.
Yeah.
So even despite, the losing last year, I think LSU fans were kind of spoiled offensively because we had such a great quarterback,
Yeah.
and him going on to the NFL now. Garrett Nussmeier had pretty big shoes to fill in the offseason. A lot of people were kind of wary on where he placed in terms of quarterback and that being that quarterback for LSU. We've now had 3, almost 4 games for the season, and Garrett Nussmeier has looked, in my opinion, pretty good. He's looked like he can manage the game on a great level, and he has the players around him to make an offensive impact. What do you think about Garrett Nussmeier so far into the season?
Nuss has been a stud. I mean, he really has. He leads the SEC in touchdowns and completions. I mean, he's carried this offense at times because this running attack's been anemic. Let's talk about this real quick. You got your leading rusher for the team is now the true freshman, Jayden Daniels, with 102 yards. 98 came in this weekend against South Carolina. Okay, so it didn't take much to become the leading rusher for this team because it's been anemic, and hopefully they can get that going. The offense has been clunky at times because it's just very difficult to be consistent with your offense when you're setting yourself up with bad down and distance situations, when you can't convert on 3rd and short because you don't have a healthy running game. So much pressure has been on Nussmeier's shoulders, and every single start he's had, he's thrown for 285 or more. That's impressive, man. I mean, there's a day and age where if you could have plugged Garrett Nussmeier and do what he's doing on some old LSU teams, those teams would be some serious competitors, man. If this team's struggling, it's not because of Nussmeier right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, speaking about that run game and how we have a big running back room. We have a lot of great names in there, but we just can't seem to get anything on the ground game. What do you think the problem is?
It's multifaceted, as are many things when you're struggling. It all starts with your offensive line, and it's pretty clear to me at this point this offensive line is not as good as they were built in preseason. Guys like me go into fall camp talking about how good they look. I guess we don't know what we're looking at, man. It's just tough sometimes. Everything you talk about going into the preseason doesn't really matter when they put the ball on the ground and they say hut. None of it matters. Doesn't matter if you're a first-round projected pick or not. Doesn't matter how many first-round picks you have. You still got to beat the guy in front of you. So, yeah, they've struggled up front. But, you know, part of the problem is a lot of the running backs aren't finding holes and lanes the way they need to. And a lot of it is they're fighting for extra yardage right now. So that's one thing we saw out of Jayden Daniels. For the first time, we saw a running back take some hits and not take a sig. He continued running hard. And Jayden Daniels has a reputation as a track star, getting out in open speed and being able to break it open. Well, that wasn't what we saw against South Carolina. We saw a little bit of it. It was mostly the little engine that could out there. It was he took a hit and he kept going. And you know, sometimes you got a guy like Caleb Jackson who's bulked up to 235. If he's not running through contact, you're having problems getting him involved because I don't care what you say, his acceleration isn't as good as it was back when he was 205, and he was still pretty chiseled back then. So I think that it's multifold is the issues we're having with running back and the running game. It's both blocking and runners, but I do think this is something they have the pieces in place.
Right, and to continue talking about that offensive line, the penalties have been a big issue, especially for someone like Will Campbell, which we didn't necessarily expect. I believe it was Emory Jones who said something about, well, it's very loud. It's very hard for him to hear. But as someone who went to fall camp and saw this, are they practicing that stuff? Like, hey, it's going to get loud, or the silent count, or what do you, like, someone who's experienced like him, is that an excuse for this to be happening?
Well, you know, there's nothing you can really do at fall camp to truly simulate it.
Right.
One thing they do very often is they go to their indoor facility and they pump up the music. That's not an SEC road environment.
Right.
You know, and there's more challenges than just the sheer volume. It's the psychological battle of those fans torturing you all game long, you know. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do to simulate it. Yes, the noise is going to be a factor, but you're an SEC athlete. This is something you need to get used to. And, you know, from what I understand, these environments should be easier this year to navigate because you got a headset and a helmet for the quarterback. And, you know, talking to Nussmeier about it, he says he can hear it nice and clear. So I guess that doesn't mean what he says to his team is clear, but it's one of those things at the end of the day, man. I mean, you got to fight through these things.
Yeah.
You didn't sign with some, you know, group of 5 team. Or you're in the SEC, and you're going to have to get used to these things.
And as we continue on with our segment of What's Going On, presented by Low and Slow, real wood, real smoke, real barbecue, Let's continue talking about this game. LSU versus UCLA at 2:40, 2:30, 2:45-ish. It seems that this UCLA team wasn't the same team they were 2 years ago when Coach O said some maybe not nice things to the fans. We'll keep it at that. And then LSU went on to lose. But what are you seeing this week? Do you think that LSU can possibly come away with this win?
Well, look, first off, it's for LSU, it's time to make blue sissy again.
Yeah.
All right, we say these words here. No, LSU's going to be 21-point favorites. That line has shifted a ton. It was 24.5 at one point. Here's the thing, Deshaun Foster has a total rebuild job on his hands at UCLA. And the fact of the matter is, any new coach nowadays really has a massive rebuild job to do, because if the coach leaves, your entire team's going to the portal.
Right.
That's how it is. And their defensive coordinator, who was really good, their strength of the team last year was the defense, right? I understand they bring their quarterback back and all that good stuff, but they were a defensive football team. He went to USC, and you see the job he's done at USC, where he held LSU to 20, and he pitches a shutout against Utah State. So they're doing some work. He's not there anymore. So this UCLA team has struggled mightily this year, man. They got blown out by Indiana, and that bodes well for LSU. LSU needs a tune-up game to get their running game and a lot of things in line and figure out that defense. And hopefully UCLA gives you that, because I'm not so certain you get that out of South Alabama anymore. I believe they
Not
put
anymore.
up, let's see, 87 and 45. Is that 120 something points or 133 points in the last 2 weeks? That's wild. So you might not get a gimme next week like you're thinking.
Well, that was kind of the same thing with Nichols, where it was they rushed for 150 yards against you, and they didn't expect that. But same thing with that run game. Like, how do you clean up that run defense if you're LSU?
I have some theories, but I don't coach the team.
Let's hear them. Let's hear
You
them.
said run defense.
Yes. Let's hear it.
On both sides.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, we talked a little about the run game. Let's talk about the defense
All right,
now.
look,
Yeah.
And watching film on this team a year ago, these issues were bad.
Yeah.
I mean, bad. I'm talking about on one play, I might mark 4 or 5 guys. You might have 2 defensive linemen lined up 2 yards off the ball. One guy with a stance with his butt way up in the air. It was a mess, man. This year, it's improved, where a lot of it is they play an aggressive defense. That's the Blake Baker style, and that's why you see they made, I believe it was 3 sacks, 2 interceptions against South Carolina. They made some plays, and those plays ended up helping win the game. But a lot of times you put your linebackers in one-on-one situations where he's in the box with that shifty running back, and he's got to get him on the ground. And I don't think this team quite has the Jimmies and Joes yet to play that kind of situation. A lot of times you've had that in the past understand you had, at one time at LSU, you had Mo Claiborne, Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, Eric Reed, all in the same secondary at the same time. You don't really have that. You'd settle for Ron Brooks, who was on the bench of that team at this point. And these guys just really aren't making the plays they need to do that. So it's just one guy misses a tackle in the box because you're playing an aggressive defense. I think on the other side of the ball, that run game is going to be a lot easier to fix in this defense, because ultimately this defense is lacking in a lot of areas, particularly defensive tackles. Their solution last week was go to a heavy 4-3 defense, which, usually they run a 4-2-5 defense. Basically, they're adding an extra linebacker to supplement for your lack of defensive line depth and talent at this point. I think on offense, they have the pieces. They just need to simplify this rushing attack. They're doing a lot of pulls, and Will Campbell, frankly, has not been a good pulling tackle. I understand wanting a good pulling lineman out there because you get a good head start and you can really open up a big hole, but it doesn't work if your guy's not getting out there and making his block. I think they need to simplify this running game. They really should try some under center, in my opinion. Just because you can have a much more dynamic running approach out from under center, and you can still do some passing and stuff. But I understand why you don't want to spend too much time going under center, because that is a whole new dynamic of getting your quarterback-center relationship built to get that going. But I think until you can get consistently 3 or 4 yards on the running game, and you can trust 70-80% of the time you can get 3 or 4 yards, I think this offense is going to look clunky, and that's just what it is.
It is definitely areas for LSU to grow on the offense and on the defense. But talking about that defense, so I was scrolling through social media earlier this week, and I ran across a TikTok saying a lot of fans are starting to believe Harold Perkins is overrated. And I was like, overrated? No. Not playing his best football right now? Okay. He is at his second year at linebacker. I'm pretty sure he's at the Sam now. What have you seen from Harold Perkins this season, and where can he get better?
Yeah, I mean, Harold Perkins kind of had a quiet season. I mean, he's been there. Some games he was your leading tackler, and people are like, where was Harold Perkins? It's like, well, he just wasn't on the edge making plays how we got introduced to him. We got introduced to him as a big-time playmaker, and he hadn't been great doing that. I'm going to reserve judgment on him. I'm not ready to say, he's overrated or he's meeting expectations yet. I really want to see some more reps out of him and see how he does. And they're still doing some shuffling on this defense. One of the things is that playing linebacker, it's highly contingent on your defensive line and them freeing you up and giving you that space. And I'm not saying he's been perfect when the defensive line has played well, but, ultimately we know what this defensive line is. We know, especially on the interior, they're lacking that depth that they really need, especially since Jacoby and Guillory went down.
Now, I've heard some rumors before the season started just about switching Harold Perkins, changing up his position, putting him on the edge more, and that a lot of those decisions were to make sure that Harold Perkins wouldn't transfer, because that's kind of the world that we live in. What were you hearing from that? Do you think that factors into this LSU winning, losing games?
Yeah, and a lot of it is keeping Harold Perkins happy, so, he's able to put an NFL resume together, right? Get some reps that'll help him develop as an NFL player. I ultimately think Harold Perkins' future is as a linebacker, not as an edge rusher, and not like a 3-4 outside linebacker either. In a 3-4 system, he's more of an interior linebacker. If you look at these pass rushing linebackers or edge rushers in the NFL, the average size is 6'3", 235. No, that's not Harold Perkins. Mm-hmm. He's way lighter than that. I think ultimately he needs to be a true linebacker, and I do think he's too darn talented to just be used as a one-trick pony. Go out there and rush the passer. I think you got to have him covering tight ends. If you look at Pro Football Focus, he consistently grades high in coverage. You have to be a complete linebacker, is what I'm saying. So, I know it hadn't quite turned on for him yet. I wouldn't be ready to give up and just say, all right, you're a third down rusher. Go out there on third down and get on the edge and go after the quarterback. I think he's too darn talented for that.
Yeah, agreed. I think a lot of the fans want to see him go back to that edge because freshman year, he's out there, he's making instant plays, and on a shaky defense, everybody's kind of looking to him as like, oh, we might have that guy. But for Harold Perkins, the game is going beyond college. He's trying to get to the NFL, and quite frankly, the tackles in the league are just a little too big for him, and he might get just toyed around with. So I definitely agree that inside linebacker role is what's going to work for him. I think as he continues to get more reps and he continues to strengthen his coverage, he's going to turn into that defensive player that a lot of people were looking for because his skill basket is still huge. And once he can perfect his true linebacker skills and he can infuse that with his pass rushing, he'll be one of those players on a defense that can do a little bit of everything for you on every down, not just a third down rusher.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just speaking as a team as a whole, Preston, going into this game, how important is it for the team to start early and to score touchdowns, more importantly, than field goals?
It's unfortunate. The signature of the Brian Kelly era has been slow starts to your season, slow starts to your games. I believe he's fell behind double digits or more in 9 football games in the first half since he got at LSU. The redeeming factor is in those games he fell down double digits. He's 5-4 miraculously in those games. So it's kind of been something that's swept under the rug. But it would be really nice to see this team kind of take command of a game early. Go out there and set the tone. And frankly, do it in season openers so you're not digging yourself out of a hole. By the way, they go to Clemson in the not-so-real Death Valley next year. And it's not getting easier. I also wonder from an administrative standpoint, should you be giving this team a week 0? Because part of your job as an administrator is to look at your team's strengths and weaknesses, just like you do as a coach, and to coach around your weaknesses. I think not fair to say that a weakness at Brian Kelly since he started at LSU. This wasn't really the case at Notre Dame outside of his last year. But since he came to LSU, your openers, you look slow, you look sloppy. You were favored to win all 3 of those openers, and you dropped all 3 of them.
Yeah.
So I think that you need to do a week 0 game and let this team work out some of the kinks, because clearly they're not doing a great job of doing that in fall camp.
Colleen?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I was just going to reiterate on that point. I feel like every single game, the one thing that everybody says to Brian Kelly is, or asks to Brian Kelly is, how are we going to get off to a fast start? How are we going to get off to a fast start? And at some point, you're just like, is this team capable of getting off to a fast start? What is it? Is it a miscommunication from the coaches to the players? Is it just the players not going out there and doing enough? Did they not prepare thoroughly enough? What do you think the problem is for us not getting these fast starts?
Man, it's one of those things where I'm still trying to figure it out. Early on, that 2022 team, it really was just bubblegum and duct tape holding it together. I mean, it was all transfer portal. It was island of misfit toys. It was, hey, look, man, I got a team with 39 scholarship players. I got to field a football team next year. Can you come in here and do it? And my thought was it was just players who were overmatched, island of misfit toys like I just described, and they were getting beaten. The coaching staff would have to make adjustments, man. Obviously, they're still doing that, but this is year 3 of the Brian Kelly era. They've been recruiting. They've been bringing their guys in. I still think this defense is a big rebuild that they're doing because, Matt House and company really put them in a rough position. And it's not like they went to the transfer portal and got All-Americans. They got their NIL collective ready to go. No, it's mostly the same players as a year ago. That was part of a historically bad defense. So, that being said, I guess it's maybe a talent issue on one side of the ball. I don't believe that it's a talent deficit on offense, not even a little bit. I wish I had that answer. Look, if this was an answer I could get, I'd be making a lot more money than I am, right? Yeah.
I was like, Brian Kelly would have called you up 3 months ago and been like, let's go.
He doesn't care about my opinion.
Yeah. But I'll say that statistically speaking and historically speaking, Brian Kelly's 3rd year at his schools are usually his best years, the years where everything seems to turn around, where the schools say, yeah, we want you around for a long time. Do you see that happening and him continue with this trend of starting slow, but then figuring out, and this is going to be a good 3rd year for them?
Look, this team hasn't played like a playoff team so far in 3 games.
Yeah.
I do think they have the pieces in place to get it right on offense. I think they've got an offensive line where if they can simplify things and put them in a position to be successful, they can do things better. And I think that Caden Durham all of a sudden turns my head and, hey, man, could he give you that just gusto, that heart you need from your running game? Maybe so. I think they just need to work out the kinks. Unfortunately, with an expanded 12-team playoff, you've got some room for error. You don't have to sweep Alabama and Ole Miss this year. You got to go one-on-one. Keep those playoff hopes alive. And look, with this schedule, you pretty much need to go 10-2. Sometimes 9-3 will do it at LSU, but that's more like that's a pretty robust schedule to get you in there, and I don't think you have that this year. So that being said, I do think they have that. I do think this defense is what it is, man. I think they're doing their best. I think coaches are doing a good job coaching it in a way where they make some plays sometimes, but I don't think they have the defensive backs. I don't think they have the defensive line in spot. And I think, frankly, they need to work on improving the linebacker play. That being said, it's greatly improved. It's really a lot better than it was a year ago. And if this defense can just be good enough to keep you in ball games and that I think this offense has the potential to be elite. Yeah. The way Nussmeier's playing, I really do think he's good enough to beat anybody. But you got to get your pieces in line.
Yeah. The thing that I think this team is missing, aside from any of the X's and O's and any of the statistics, the one thing that I think the team is missing is that heart you're talking about, that aggression. For some reason, when I watch the football games, when I watch LSU go out there, you see flashes of aggression. You see flashes of passion. But then you see this team get down on themselves really quick, too. You see them not have each other's back. And I'm one of those dudes, when I'm watching a football game, listen, if your team is down, you better still hit the bad color as hard as you can. If they hit your quarterback any type of wrong way, the O-line better be up in that defense's face. Like, what are you doing? And that's the one thing I think we're missing, because that heart brings you a long way. Aside from anything that the players can do, if your team wants to be out there and play with each other, there's a boost that happens. There's something that those players feed off of, and I think that we're missing that just a little bit. It comes out in flashes, but it's not enough. It's not like what us LSU fans remember seeing on TV.
Yeah, and I think you saw that last year. What I recall is that Missouri game with Jayden Daniels, and Jayden Daniels kind of saying, all right, the defense isn't going to get this done, but I'm going to go get it done. And then it hyped everyone up. Let's do this. Let's find a way to stop Mizzou if we can. And Jayden Daniels is running all over the offense. Whereas great as Garrett Nussmeier is, this team does need to realize you don't have that anymore, right? You don't have that aspect. But we'll come back to LSU versus UCLA. Let's talk a little bit about the Saints, and specifically Derek Carr. Derek Carr was fined $14,000, if I'm not mistaken, for doing a little Michael Jackson dance. We won't get into the logistics.
Provocative grab.
I'm sure you've seen the video already. But let's talk about the Saints' swagger. All right, they're off to a hot start, but also the media team is amazing. I don't know if you've seen their videos on social media. And then it seems that Derek Carr is just, in a sense, bringing New Orleans football back to life.
Yeah, man. Look, when I saw he got fined $15,000, $14,000, whatever he got fined, I was like, that's how you know this team's got their mojo good. Next thing you know, we're going to see a Bounty Gate report. No, you're too strong, too much. But anyways, you know, this team really hadn't had that mojo, that swagger for a while, man. It's exciting to see it. Alvin Kamara is looking like a legend out there. Look, man, I was one of the very few people I was kind of excited to see Derek Carr come to town. I understood the struggles at Oakland, but I also saw there were some good moments at Oakland, and that is the definition of a dysfunctional franchise.
Yes.
I mean, I've been watching since the Jamarcus Russell days, that franchise completely implode consistently. And I was like, you know, hey, if the Saints can be just a little less dysfunctional than the Raiders, this could work. This guy's got the arm talent for days. In fact, I believe he leads the league in touchdown passes right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's got 5. He's looking like it now. Looks like Clint Kubiak was just the bit of magic they needed to get this sucker rolling, man. I hope they keep on going.
I definitely didn't anticipate the Saints to go off on such a hot start like they did so far, but now all of a sudden, that next matchup against the Saints versus Kansas City Chiefs this week is starting to look like, hey, what you would have thought 2 weeks ago would have been just a sweep and a walk in the park for the Chiefs. Now you're like, this is going to be a game. This is exciting to watch. Clint Kubiak has definitely revived that offense. And Alvin Kamara, he is still looking amazing. That balance is still there, and it's impeccable how you need 2 or 3 guys to get him to the ground, and even then, you might not get him to the ground. It's fun to watch.
I'm so happy you said that about Derek Carr, because when the Raiders decided to let him go, I laughed a little bit. Like, he was the problem. Like, their coach didn't get fired, and their wide receivers weren't in and out of criminal cases, so to speak. And it felt like Derek Carr had to go on and save face once a week, once a month. Okay, this is what I've talked to them, and they're not bad people, and just like trying to do this PR, that adds a lot to your football game. It was like one of the reasons when Jayden Daniels got drafted to the Commanders, I was like, oh, that's a lot for a young quarterback to put on his back with all the issues. But now it seems that Derek Carr has been able to take a step back and really zone in on football, which he wasn't necessarily able to do on the Oakland Raiders, or on the Raiders rather, with all the issues. But again, going back to Kamara, were you ever fed into the possible lie, maybe, of how Kamara's washed and he can't play anymore?
Maybe a little bit, because he was getting hurt a lot. You know, I probably did get sucked into that a little bit. The reality is, with NFL running backs, they have a very, very short shelf life. And I believe he's 29, if I'm not mistaken now. So you're kind of...
Yeah, he's 29.
What's that?
He's 29.
Yeah, okay. And, you know, that's kind of... Grim Reaper's knocking. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, NFL running backs, they're like Leonardo's girlfriends, man. I mean, you just out. 25 comes around and they push you out the door, man. So, you know, I thought maybe he was a little. And typically, when a guy deals with multiple years of injuries like that, they don't come back 100% usually. I mean, they might play football, but in the NFL, man, losing a half step. That's the difference between being a spectacular player and just being a body out there.
Well, I'm sorry, New Orleans. Even though y'all are getting off to a hot start, I ain't gonna believe in the Saints yet, because you don't know. Playoffs might come and something's gonna happen.
You don't believe
Something
it?
always happens to the Saints during the playoffs.
The crime rates are down in New Orleans right now, David.
But
and
you
you're
know what?
not
I
gonna-
can't talk because I'm a New York Giants fan, so
Yeah,
I've been going through pain
don't
since
listen.
week 1.
He's delusional.
Can we get the hype train fully going real quick?
Yeah.
You know how many points they've scored in the first 2 weeks?
How many?
91.
Okay.
You know the last time the Saints scored 91 points?
When?
It was 93 points in 2009, the year they won the Super Bowl. You know the last team other than the Saints to do it was the Cowboys when they won the Super Bowl. They also scored 91. I'm just saying.
Let's go. Let's
look,
go.
man, if you want to go full on, hey, do y'all know where the Super Bowl is this year?
Yeah.
New Orleans.
New Orleans, baby. That's right.
special would
That's
that
right.
be?
Let's get the hype train rolling. I don't care if it's irrational. I'm ready, man.
Crazy.
Let's
It's
go.
not
Rational.
crazy.
I think you guys
It's
got
not
a chance.
crazy.
I'm not paid to cover the Saints. I can act.
But it's not crazy when you think about it. I mean,
not?
the Eagles just lost to the Falcons.
Who
They're-
has a more impressive resume? Maybe the Chiefs.
I think they're beatable. I think the Chiefs are beatable compared if the Saints continue this run. Like the Eagles, to me, but coming into the season, were
Yeah.
the big, bad, scary team. To lose to the Falcons the way you did, stop. Nick Sirianni got full of himself, and that's what he does, and that's why Philly loves him because when it works, it's great. Oh, we love Nick Sirianni. Yeah, we're gonna go for it. Throw it to Saquon Barkley. Last time I checked, you paid him to make sure you could carry the ball, not catch a ball.
yeah.
So it's like if you're going to make those moves that I don't think the Saints are going to make, or at least those mistakes, because you're getting kind of greedy, I would say, if that's what I think at least, if watching that game, if the Saints don't make those mistakes, they could definitely beat the Eagles.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to this game against the Eagles. Here's the deal. Jalen Hurts is a guy locked into a $52 million contract. Now, let's understand, that contract is backloaded as all you know what. I don't think I've ever seen a backloaded contract.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're going to have to pay this man. But anyways, they've committed to a large amount of money that equals $52 million a year eventually, okay? And he threw an interception there with the game on the line. Kirk Cousins drives you down the field, wins the game.
And he's in prime time.
And Jalen
In prime
Hurts
time.
throws a pick. I'm just saying, you pay your quarterback $50 million to make those plays when it matters. You know. So yeah, I'm very much so looking forward to this Eagles game. Also looking forward to the Heisman Bowl. We got that Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Burrow Daniels.
That's going to be exciting. And I
It's
think,
gonna be fun to watch. I can't wait to see that one because, listen, even though I'm not a Commanders fan, I'm going to always watch Jayden Daniels play electric, and I can't wait to see his trajectory in the NFL. Going to go against Joe Burrow, who got into the league, and he was injured the entire first year, but that second year, he showed quick why he deserved to be in the NFL, so it's going to be really fun to see two LSU legends get at it.
there's a little bit of a trend I have going with my fantasy football books, and Joe Burrow was on it this year. Antonio Brown was on it one year, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey, the year he tore his ACL, Saquon, the year he got hurt. So I'm not saying anything here, but if Burrow loses to Jayden Daniels and has a rough season, feel free to blame me.
I'm interested to see who LSU fans root for in this
Right.
game because Jayden Daniels more recent, but I mean Joe Burrow.
Do you think there will be this divide, but like 2019 before and then 2020 on?
You know, I
Or
think
21?
I think people are going to be happy either way. I'm more so interested of like, you got to pick one.
Right, you can't root for them
You
both.
gotta put a cold question out there.
Yeah.
Which one would you? I think it'll be 64, 36. Probably people going for Joe because you know he won
Yeah.
the Natty and every other shiny metal plaque available in 2019, and Jayden Daniels carried the team in 2023. But you know, ultimately they lost 3 games.
Yeah, and I just feel like the love for the Bengals in general went up with
yeah.
Burrow and Chase. Like, how many people in Louisiana cared about the Bengals before
Yeah.
they both got there, right?
Right.
You would know more than me, but it's like, all right, he's made a difference, whereas now it's Jayden Daniels. He's done so much the last 2 years, but
And the Commanders cut Cade York. So
Right,
I mean, you
right.
know, we got some reason to be upset with the team.
yes, yeah. And it kind of goes back to David. David's a Giants fan. Who are
You
you
gotta
picking?
say that so
I'm
loud.
very sorry to hear that.
Hey, you're dedicated. I give you credit.
Listen, I
give you credit.
I'm big on loyalty.
Can you do me a favor and free Malik? I mean, what's going on there,
Oh,
man?
yep.
Once we get another quarterback back there, Malik is
Oh.
going to be super happy. I'm off the Danny Dimes train. I need Daniel Jones out of here. That's Danny Pennies. I mean,
this is a big moment for David. David has been dedicated to Daniel Jones and was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Daniel Jones is our quarterback.
They're financially dedicated to him, though. So
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. Maybe the lesson there is don't pay a quarterback tens of millions of dollars because he had 4 good games.
I think it's the same thing with the Cowboys and Dak Prescott as well. That to me, you have to win multiple playoff games before you get a big paycheck.
Yeah,
but that's not the way the NFL is set up anymore. That's just the truth.
Right. It's one of those situations like I think about Joe Flacco.
Right.
He won a Super Bowl, and we kind of knew he was like a middle-of-the-road quarterback, but it's like, do you want to keep him?
Yeah.
He just won the Super Bowl. He's not worth it, but he's the best you're going to get, so you might as well just do it. And, you saw the Ravens kind of take a back seat after Ray Lewis's retirement, Ed Reed's retirement, and until Lamar Jackson got there.
I mean, it's the same thing with Sam Bradford many years ago at the Eagles, and the Eagles signed him a ton of money.
He's not great, but he's the best you're going to get.
And now but again, now you're in the same situation going back to the Eagles where it's like you think you have this great quarterback, not to say he's not, but you're struggling. You're losing to the Falcons with a Kirk Cousins in prime time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not. I think he's a solid quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Great kid.
Yeah.
Hold up. The fact that he can squat 600 pounds and does that QB sneak, phenomenal, man. Great at that. But as a quarterback, I think he's just middle of the road. There's people who think he's like, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. I think that's crazy talk. We're talking about a guy who throws 22 touchdowns a year. Like
he needs A.J. Brown. I
right,
think.
Exactly. And by the way, before he got A.J. Brown, he was pretty mediocre to begin with. And all of a sudden you throw him in there. And look, I think Jalen Hurts' success is very much so a Howie Roseman success story. Mm-hmm. That GM for Philly, he's a freak of nature, man.
Yeah,
he really is.
He really is. He really is amazing. And let's talk a little bit about Alabama quarterbacks. Why not, right? We're on the topic of Jalen Hurts and it seems to go on and on that for years Alabama just can't get these quarterbacks to produce in the NFL. And then finally you thought you had kind of a 4-core, even though Jalen Hurts went on to transfer. And then all of a sudden you don't. You're like, Mac Jones is on the bench. Like it just keeps happening.
Tua too.
Yeah.
Poor Tua.
I guess what it really goes to show you is it's difficult to be good in the National Football League.
Yeah.
There's really only about 10 or 12 human beings on the planet who we would call a good NFL quarterback. And statistically speaking, eventually things are going to go down for you. I don't know if there's any correlation there, but those Bama guys are having a hard time this year.
Yeah. So you hyped it up. Let's go back to the hype of the New Orleans Saints with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
If which I think it could happen, if they go on to even have a Super Bowl appearance or win the Super Bowl, where do you rank Derek Carr after all of this in terms of being the quarterback he is?
Okay, quarterbacks for the Saints?
Yeah.
Or quarterbacks in the NFL?
Do both. Why don't we do both? Why don't we do NFL and just for the Saints
if he
all the time?
wins the Super Bowl or even makes it, I mean, you'd have to put him second. It's not a rich history.
In Saints history.
It's
Yeah,
Saints,
yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's not a super rich history.
Right.
You got Bobby Hebert. I mean, and I believe the only other quarterback to win a playoff game other than Drew Brees is that Aaron Brooks? Yeah, I think it's Aaron Brooks is the only, and it's one. So it's like, if another guy takes you to the Super Bowl, I mean, there's really no other place to put him. I mean, in terms of players, I was thinking, there's DeMario Davis, defensive Cam Jordan.
Yeah.
Those guys might rank high. Some of the, Dome Patrol guys definitely might rank above him. It just depends on what he does to take him to the Super Bowl if he wins it.
Right.
In terms of NFL, man, if he continues doing what he's doing, I mean, he's top 5 quarterback. If he continues doing what he's doing and goes to the Super Bowl like that, yeah.
And it's not uncommon to see quarterbacks revive their careers nowadays.
Right.
Perfect example, Geno Smith up there with the Seattle Seahawks. For a while, people thought that he was about to be out of the door in the NFL. Went to the Seahawks, got his start, hasn't looked back ever since.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely different, but I will be interested to ask, you were talking about Jalen Hurts, where are you ranking Derek Carr in that top 5? Let's be specific right now. Yeah.
Understand, the fantasy world we were just talking about, that's Saints Super Bowl world. That's where I want to be, but we're not there yet,
It happened. Positive thinking.
But right now, I think Derek Carr is playing like a top 12 quarterback. I think that's fair to say. I don't have like the sheet and stats and all that good stuff to evaluate it, but I mean, he seems like top half of the league quarterback easily. He's playing very well. It's not like he's been perfect. Some things here and there, but yeah, I think it's very fair to call him a top 12 quarterback right now.
Preston, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for joining us at Walk-Ons on the Purple Room. And we're going to do something special now. We said Tim Tebow signed a helmet earlier. We want to ask you to be our first guest to sign it, join the ranks of Tim Tebow
Your
on the
name
Purple
will be
Room
next to Tim
helmet.
Tebow.
Sign next to Tim
Yes.
Tebow.
How special is that? Maybe you can write "Go LSU" on there, "Go Tigers" or something. Make it a little. Yeah. Let's
Just right over it.
Yeah, just scratch out the "Go Gators." Why would he do that? He knew what he was doing. But yeah, this is special. I mean, right next to Tim Tebow. Who would have imagined? You'll have to sign your name so you can get it right next to Tim Tebow.
One day.
One day, you and Tim Tebow write a book together, right? I love this. This is awesome. This will be a trend that we'll be continuing with the guests that we have on each week at Walk-On. So when we're live, we'll have a guest on each week, and they'll all be signing the helmet. Love it. Go Tigers.
What's the plan with this helmet?
We're going to keep it in our room. So the room that we do the podcast when we're not here at Walk-Ons, it's kind of going to be used as a prop. Oh, yeah, your name will be on there. You'll be able to see it.
Forever onward.
Yes.
Preston Guy's name will sit
Yes.
next to Tim Tebow's name in the Tiger TV studio.
You've
Correct.
been immortalized.
Yes.
Dude, that's a legacy.
You,
right
you think
there.
you'd never be able to say
We
that?
left the legacy today. I gotta
Take a picture.
Take a picture.
Yeah, put it on
Shout
Twitter.
it out.
He's active on Twitter. I love it. But let's
We're gonna do best bets.
yeah, let's
Yep.
do some best
Thank
bets.
y'all
As
for having me,
yeah, I
guys.
love
wish y'all
it.
the
Thank
best
you
of
so
luck with
much.
y'all's future careers and all that.
Thank
good
you
stuff.
so
Thank you
much.
so
Yeah,
much.
you've been awesome. Really talking about
Thank
ball,
you, guys.
teaching us more than we could ever know.
Ladies
And
and
once
gentlemen,
again-
that was Preston Guy, the GOAT.
Preston Guy now next to Tim Tebow on the LSU football helmet. But David, let's get into No Sweat Bets presented by Southern Air. Fixed right or it's free. Now, we were talking about the Saints. They'll play the Eagles at noon. The Saints are favored by 2.5 points, and they're going to win. I need a safe bet to ensure that I can secure whatever punishment one of us might have to have if we lose. So I think this is a safe bet. The Saints are on fire.
Let me hear it.
We just talked about it. They destroyed the Cowboys last week when the Cowboys, everyone thought the Cowboys would win. Didn't happen. Saints all the way.
That's your safe bet.
That's my safe bet, yeah.
Okay.
I actually have two safe bets, honestly.
What's your other one?
I have Tennessee.
Give out all the bets. Because if all of them mess up, you mess up three times.
No. I actually only have two, and I have Tennessee at number 6, playing Oklahoma number 15. I don't think Oklahoma's ready for SEC play. I think Tennessee has been a little bit of a shocker. Quarterback's a true freshman. Doesn't matter. They're on
Give me a
fire.
second.
Oh, my gosh.
You keep talking.
I'm alone again. I was alone last week. David has prepared once again to have something scheming. He was scheming all day. He was one of the only people who knew Tim Tebow would be joining us in the studio at SEC Network. We want to thank all of them out there for allowing us to talk to Laura Rutledge and Tim Tebow and them coming in the studio. Jordan Rogers as well. David knew about that. He told nobody. So now, once again, he is a little surprised. I don't even think this fits him.
I couldn't tell anybody.
I know what he is. I think, did you have a talk with Brian Kelly or something?
Patricia, you know what my sweat bet's going to be this week. You know what it has to be this week.
He's back.
We got LSU versus UCLA
Yeah.
tomorrow. Tiger Stadium, 2:45 p.m. We're going to have those Bruins walking in Death Valley. You know what we're going to do? We're going to ruin the Bruins. And you know how we going to do it? The Tiger way. Watch this. Hold on.
Oh, my gosh.
We got this.
I don't even think this fits him. He was like, it's a little tight. That's what He's a dedicated fan. Are you going to wear that on the game day show tomorrow, too? He'll be producing the game day show tomorrow, 2 hours before kickoff.
And guess what? You know what? I got LSU by 1,000,000 points because UCLA ain't going to do nothing to us. UCLA, see you later. Y'all going to have to take that bus back to Cali. Don't even take the plane. Take the bus because you need as much time as possible to soak in that L, that fat Tiger L in Tiger Stadium. You know, every time we're home, I'm excited because I ain't going to have that much games. I'm a junior. The time is already ticking.
Right.
So while we winning, you know damn well I'm going to rep LSU, Trish.
LSU, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?
You know, I got the drip everywhere. Come on.
Yeah, where'd you get? Yeah, you pulled out the Giants jersey last week. You have the LSU. Oh wait, that fits. That fits. There's cardboard on top of it, so it can't go on all the way. But that would not. My head's too big for that. That could not fit on my head. So that. He's so ready. Brian Kelly, call him up. If you need backup tomorrow, he'll be here. Right after. What time's the game day show? 12:30.
I'm ready today.
Game day show's at 12:30, right?
Yeah, no, game day show. Tune into the Tiger TV game day show at noon tomorrow because we're going to break down everything LSU versus UCLA. Obviously, not as biased as me right now.
And then he'll be in the game. That's what it looks like. Then you'll be playing. Maybe you'll have the walk down Victory Hill and lead Brian Kelly there. But as we wrap this up and you see David's outfit, what you can't see in the crowd was that thank you to walk-ons because we were able to give away 2 free cheese fries to those who were able to join us. So if you want some free cheese fries, make sure to join us next week when LSU takes on South Alabama. And possibly, maybe, David could be a starting lineman for LSU at that point. He might not be able to make it next week if Brian Kelly sees this. You see those hand movements? I mean, that's years of practice right there. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Purple Room. Huge thank you once again to Preston Guy for joining us. I'm Patricia Caputo. He's David Bartholomew. And this has been the Purple Room presented by Walk-Ons.
Go Tigers.